welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host kushalmehra. All right, as always, back on the podcast, and today we are going to be talking about what changed in India after the Bronze Age. And to tell you what changed in India after the Bronze Age is Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit, welcome.
Namaste, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good. अभी शुरू हो जा बोल.
क्या बोलूं?
हाँ
Start
क्या?
off, at least give a bloody introduction. No.
Okay, so first एक काम करते हैं. Start like this. Explain what the Bronze Age is, because it's very important to explain, because there is even a debate on what qualifies to be a Bronze Age these days. उसके
Yes.
ऊपर भी बहुत सारी confusion है. So when you say Bronze Age in India, what exactly do you mean? By what time was the Bronze Age in India, and what were the specific features that, and what were we excelling at in the Bronze Age in India? And then what certain circumstances were, what were the circumstances that led to those changes, good or bad, from the Bronze Age?
Right.
We'll start from there.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a comparative thing of Bronze Ages everywhere to start off with, right? Because first of all, it's important to understand what bronze did. Okay? And the comparative advantages it brought and non-comparative advantages. And then we try to understand why there is such a great difference in scale of Bronze Age civilizations. Okay, so the first thing we understand is, what is bronze? Okay, bronze is basically an alloy of copper and tin. You have to first, and it is a process, it is an industrial process. It is the earliest of our industrial processes. Okay, why? Because it was done in bulk. Stone Age processing was also done, but it was done in much smaller communities. Except in Mesoamerica, where you have Stone Age empires, nowhere else do you have Stone Age empires. Now, why is it that Bronze Age in the old world starts seeing empires? Okay, first is tin. Tin is much rarer, was much rarer than copper. Okay, you could find tin somewhere in Britain. You could find tin in Afghanistan and northern India. Well, what was undivided India? I mean, a subcontinent, northern part of the subcontinent. In the beginning, they discovered other tin resources. I'm not going to get to that. I'm going to go sequentially. Now, what happens is, why is bronze so important? Because bronze, first you have to choose the copper, then you have to choose the tin ore. Then you have to separate the tin from the ore, which in itself is a process. Then you have to melt both the tin and the copper, and then in molten copper you have to add tin, which is a process. Now, given that tin was so rare, it necessitated trade networks. So trade networks by themselves, long distance trade networks, became a function of bronze. Bronze gave birth to trade networks. Okay, but why? Why was it that they couldn't just do with stone humko? Why can't we just do with copper? Why do we need tin? Why do we need to import this tin from either Afghanistan or Britain, so far away? Much more so from Afghanistan, which was incidentally under the control of the Indus Valley civilization at the time, than from Britain, which was, apparently a much more precarious trip. Simply because of the advantage that bronze brings. So bronze is much stronger than either copper or tin in its raw state. It is not the strongest metal, but it was much stronger than copper, and it was much stronger than tin. Now, what happens is, a plow made of bronze significantly improves your agriculture. It's harder, therefore it can plow deeper without breaking or bending and things like that. Of course, the major revolution that came about in plowing was not because of shifting to iron from bronze. It was actually the horse. A horse can plow a field something like 2.5 times faster than an ox or a cow with the same plow. So that is a different. We're not getting into horses this time. This is just bronze. So it kind of made crop yields much better by say about 20 to 25% because you could dig deeper. Stones can flake. If stone meets a much harder stone, so you will always choose a softer stone to chip because that is what is easier to chip. But then if there is a very hard rock, and remember, when you're plowing, why are you plowing? It's to shake up the soil and also to get all the stones and pebbles and things out of there. If it is a harder rock, then that entire work that you've put into the plow goes down the drain, right? So you don't want that. So bronze it did improve agriculture reasonably. Say, I've read several different estimates. I'm going with say a 20 to 25% increase in productivity. What it truly revolutionized was warfare. Okay. Now, warfare, again, do you remember the horse podcast that we did, which was all about the economics of the horse?
Yes.
Much more so than the tactics of the horse. The tactics of the horse were almost relatively irrelevant compared to the economics of the horse that I showed. The economics of bronze, or rather the economics of tin, meant that everybody, not every little chutku mutku little city state can sustain a long distance tin trade. Because that tin coming from Afghanistan or that tin coming from Great Britain, Cornwall mostly, was so fabulously expensive, only very, very rich city states could afford it. So you get that tin in. So if the tin is expensive, then obviously your bronze is also going to be expensive. So outfitting your armies with bronze armor, bronze weapons, bronze helmets, super expensive. So you needed to have a city that had massive agricultural output in order to attain the kind of wealth that it required to be able to manufacture bronze in large numbers. And that bronze, more than the tactics, was extremely decisive in the battlefield. A bronze sword versus a stone sword, the bronze is going to win any day, every day, day after day. A bronze sword lined with leather is going to be able to absorb a hit much better. There is no stone that is going to be able to get through it. And the leather will absorb a blunt force impact much better. Like, that's how airbags work. It prevents that shock kind of thing. The leather behind it kind of acts like a cushioning thing. So what it did was it skewed the balance of power in favor of the much richer, bigger city states, which then found fantastic ways of creating empires, because they would just gobble up all the smaller territories close to them. Because before this, it was just stone. You were fighting each other with stone. Stone is found anywhere. It's a question of tactics and how much, how many arrowheads are you able to chip away? How many spears are you able to chip away, and things like that. This is why the Bronze Age starts seeing the first and huge empires. Okay? So you look even at the spread of... Okay. So what it did was, you have to understand the economics. This is why economics is so important. That empires were not created because of great rulers. The vision, yes, of course. But most of those empires were created because of the sheer cost of bronze and the revolution, the way it revolutionized warfare. This is number one. The problem was, it was always going to be a very niche commodity, and the tin trade routes also became the palace trade routes. So trade in this period wasn't large-scale trade as we understand it. It dealt exclusively in luxuries. Okay, so we have letters, for example, of the Akkadian Empire, Sargon of Akkad and all of those people. There are there are descriptions of what are coming from India, from Harappa, presumably, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, from the Indus Valley civilization. They want peacocks. They want lapis lazuli, again, which is found in Afghanistan. They want carnelian, which is a red stone. Think of it as primitive ruby. It's not ruby at all. It's just a red stone, but we have no evidence for rubies this early, so I'm just calling it the primitive ruby, just for the sake of calling it that. And these required a huge amount of time, because getting at the lapis lazuli, you have to go into fairly deep mines. It is very dangerous work. For carnelian, you get the stone. First of all, getting the stone is a chore, and then the Indus Valley civilization wasn't simply selling it as raw material; they were selling it as processed goods. They used to take a carnelian stone, and so that you could make a necklace, they would bore holes through the middle of it. So remember, all what you've read in your history books, which is these three civilizations, four technically. There was China happening at the same time as well. Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, and China. They all start off because of agriculture. They become sedentary because of agriculture, but they do not become large empires because of agriculture. They become large empires because of bronze. Now, when they become large empires because of bronze, I mean, there's a huge question mark on what Harappa is. Is it an empire? Is it decentralized? What is it, etc., etc., etc. But still, they become large, coherent states. Mesopotamia is a unique example where it wasn't. Sometimes it was coherent, sometimes it was not, and that we can discuss in the Q&A on why certain city-states dominated and others did not. But what ends up happening is that you see this whole process of consolidation happening precisely and only because of bronze, and trailing onto that, you then start having this international trade in precious commodities, peacocks, lapis lazuli, and carnelian. Now, agriculture makes you sedentary. The bronze creates the economy for you to become bigger. That size has to be sustained somehow. Where is this money coming from? Because if everybody could produce the same amount of agriculture, how does one city-state which create an empire? What is the competitive advantage it has? Now, in Egypt, that competitive advantage was gold. And the gold mostly came from Nubia, down south. All the mines were down south. Now, this is where I need to go into my this thing. I need to share my screen, don't I?
So put the screen up, then you have to click share screen and then put it up. I'll put it when the page you want to show will come on the screen. Don't worry about that. That's all at my end. जब तेरा screen आ जाएगा, yeah, I can see you. Put the page on which you want to see. Then I will put it on.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Now, can you see?
Yep. Here.
Okay. I'm sorry. Not Thebes, Memphis. Memphis, and let me put this on satellite, and I'm going to zoom out. Now, Memphis is the first real capital of Egypt. Okay, it is the first capital of Egypt, and I want you to see where it is in relation to Egypt. It's way to the north. So if you can see Egypt here, this is the whole of Egypt, and Memphis is way up north. Correct? Everybody can see this?
दिख गया.
दिख गया? Yeah, so you can see this. Now, what happens here is, I want you to notice these are the early dynasties which built the pyramids and things like that. And here you can see the pyramids are somewhere close by. Where are they? Anyway, they're just south of. See, this is the first pyramid, the pyramid of Djoser. So it's very close to this thing, Memphis. Now, why is that happening out here? The trade routes all come from this part. So they come all the way from two places. I'm just going to show you as the bird flies, which you will get a sense. So if I measure distance and I put this on Memphis and I put the thing to the mines in Afghanistan, this is 3,212 kilometers. Can you see that?
Yep, it's at the bottom, right?
Correct. Now, let me put it at Cornwall. 3,700 kilometers. Except you also have to travel quite a bit. You didn't travel that far out to sea. You traveled like so, hugging the coast. Like this. You would travel and like this, and then like this, and then like this, this. Look at the final distance that we've covered. It is, how much does this say? I have to.
Some 4,000 odd kilometers, right?
No, it's that is
4,100 likha.
It's
miles.
No,
Oh yeah,
see, it's 6,700 kilometers.
Yeah, so 4,100 into 1.6 karna padega na.
Right. This is how much. It's 6,700 kilometers that it had to travel. This is why this particular route was stop. I have to stop sharing 1 second. Clear measurement. Okay, and let me share again. Okay, I'm sharing again.
Yeah. To lava, I'll put it up.
As opposed to here, where what was happening was, do you remember the ports of Lothal and all of that? So it was a very direct route. If I'm measuring distances, I'm measuring distances from here to here to here, coming up to Mesopotamia. And then from here, it was an overland route here, which was much shorter. It was still a tedious route, but it was much shorter. It certainly wasn't 6,700 kilometers at that point of time. Okay. Now, let's go back to Memphis. Notice something about Memphis. What is the city of Memphis close to?
Water body or something of that sort.
Cairo. Keep this in mind. Keep this in mind, because the early Egyptian dynasties all ruled out of Memphis. The later Egyptian dynasties ruled out of Thebes, which is somewhere, Thebes and Luxor, which is somewhere down here. Let me find Thebes. Okay, Thebes. Directions from Memphis. Look at the distance, 623 kilometers. Now, why did that shift? That shifted because the source of Egypt's wealth, not the source of its civilization, but the source of its wealth, came from here. This was Nubia. And this is where all the gold came from. So it shifts from what is cheaper for trade here in Memphis because it's a more direct route.
You have stopped sharing the screen, dum-dum.
Oh, sorry. Let me share screen. Sorry. How dumb.
Whenever you don't want to share the screen, you let me know. I'll put
No. You have to. Okay, ठीक है. So look, can you guys see here from Memphis to Thebes?
Mm-hmm.
It's 620 odd kilometers. It's more if you take the boat down the Nile, which is the way it was done, right? Because all the gold mines came from these areas here and further south. So it was kind of protection for your basically your capital moves closer to your either to your threat or to your source of wealth.
Mm-hmm.
This was the source of their wealth. Now, what was the source of India's wealth? Now, remember, India's wealth. Now, you can stop sharing. When I say India, I mean the Indus Valley civilization.
Got it.
India, that way, ends up becoming the, I won't say the Saudi Arabia of the old, of the Bronze Age, but it ends up becoming even better. It becomes the Russia of the Bronze Age. Why? Because it has a monopoly not just on tin, which is so crucial for most of your empires to survive, on cheaper tin, because the more expensive tin comes from England, from Cornwall. Okay, and they just don't have a population to produce the kind of quantities of tin required. Second is you have an absolute monopoly on the precious stone of that age, which is lapis lazuli. Okay, if you want to understand how important lapis lazuli is, I am now going to show you. Don't share it yet.
I'll share it. I know when to share it. Don't worry. You just put it on. Lapis lazuli is such a common thing. It's mentioned in literally every single scripture. Every single
Right,
script. Yeah.
but I want you to look at this. This is from the royal tombs of Ur. This is it's a harp.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
And see lapis lazuli. It's gold and lapis lazuli.
Mm-hmm.
This is taken from a human sacrifice cemetery in Ur, which was one of the big cities of the time. This is the ram trying to eat from a tree, and you can see it is also full of lapis lazuli.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Great War engraving of Ur, and can you see it is also lapis lazuli?
Let me enlarge.
Right, it is ivory and lapis lazuli.
Okay, yeah, now I can see better. Yeah.
Let me see. 1 second. Let me open image. Can you guys see this?
Yeah. Now this is much better.
Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see the background is all lapis lazuli and the inlay is ivory? So you're kind of like Saudi Arabia that also produces diamonds and uranium. So you're basically like Russia. The third thing that you have, and this is the harp that I was telling you about. If you can see this.
Yep.
Open image. Can you see this?
Mm-hmm.
The lapis lazuli here is so important to this. It's actually at this point, it's more precious than the gold. Right? Because gold can be locally found, lapis lazuli cannot be locally found. It comes from only one place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The other thing that you see is carnelian. Carnelian. So this is how Harappan carnelian looked. If you can see here,
Mm-hmm.
right? These are long beads. They are also etched like this. So open image in new tab. If you can see this, long beads that need to be drilled to be connected, and they were also etched. So this is a final finished product that was being sold abroad. Mm-hmm. If you want to understand why these were important, and remember at this point you did not have diamonds, you did not have rubies,
yep,
you did not have emeralds, right? Tutankhamun necklace. Let me run a search for.
This must be really, really like a elite thing at that time.
Totally elite. Can you see all the blue is? Let me open in the tab. Can you see all the blue here
Mm-hmm.
They are not emeralds, they're lapis lazuli.
Mm-hmm.
And all the red here is carnelian.
Mm-hmm.
Plus gold, of course.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that this was like your diamonds and rubies of the time. This was like your uranium of the time. This was like basically Harappa hit gold.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me show you some of the other things. This. Tab.
The history of
You look at
humanity is all about discovering products that are in demand.
okay,
And
there.
yeah.
Basically, I mean, look at this. This is all lapis lazuli. The lapis lazuli here would have been much more expensive than the gold. The
Uh-huh.
carnelian was probably, we're not too sure, we apparently not, but apparently the carnelian was close to gold, but it wasn't more expensive than gold. But the lapis lazuli was. So this was like, imagine this scarab here, the beetle here, this big one. This was probably the Kohinoor of its time,
Yep.
right? And again, it came from Afghanistan. So you look at what Tutankhamun is wearing in his famous The Chair of Tutankhamun, Tutankhamun Tomb Throne. I want to show you the inlay in this, the inlay work here. Look what it is that they're mostly wearing. You look at their necklaces, their
Yeah.
jewelry. Most of it is lapis lazuli, all the precious gems. What in a today's necklace you would either put sapphires or diamonds, they were putting lapis lazuli and carnelian,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is basically to show you why Harappa. Now, Harappa's entire economy, you can stop sharing now,
Mm-hmm.
was a mercantile economy.
Yeah.
And this is why the trade guilds were so powerful. You're not seeing king stamps or king letters. What you're seeing is seals, cylindrical seals of trade guilds in Mesopotamia. And this kind of makes this entire area a factory. So Egypt's wealth came from the gold of Nubia, which is to say deep southern Egypt, what is now northern Sudan, northern North Sudan. India's wealth came from these things and trading them. Okay,
Mm.
this is how India became rich.
Yeah, but the interesting
Mesopotamia,
thing is India was doing not only raw material mining, it was finishing the product and sending it across.
yes, yes,
It's
it
the
was
whole.
finishing the
So,
product and
so,
sending it.
so just think about the economic output that is generated. You take the product out, then you make it, and then you export it. So you get all the profits of all the stages, right?
Exactly. So they were adding huge value to it. Now you understand why the size of the docks in, is it Lothal? Lothal docks. Why they're so huge. There is no dock of that size anywhere in the world at that point of time. And
Mm-hmm.
you also begin to understand this put the power in traders' hands. Unlike Egypt and Mesopotamia, where the power was in the king's hand, here the trade guilds were the most powerful. So we still don't know what kind of government, but we can fairly adduce that it wasn't monarchical, precisely because, and this is a very important thing that you see in Harappa during the Bronze Age, social stratification isn't much. A Egyptian laboring to build the pyramids would have lived a short, brutish life, whereas the king was living a life that most of us today cannot dream of. In Sumer, in Ur, that royal burial I showed you, where about 30 attendants were sacrificed, their heads were either clubbed in or they were given poison to drink. In that particular tomb, where all those lapis lazuli treasures come from, the social stratification is immense. Right? Egypt, what are all the buildings of this time? They're only pyramids and things to deify their kings. What is the only monuments that you see in Mesopotamia at this time? It's ziggurats, which is another kind. It's stepped pyramids to the gods. In India, you don't see that. You see public goods. That is the biggest thing in Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Rakhigadi, Lothal, Kalibangan, all of them. The biggest buildings are dedicated to the people. It is baths, it is granaries, it is great halls of meeting, etc., etc. There are no palaces. Almost everybody's house is the same size. There is some stratification. The outer city has slightly smaller houses and things like that. But you look at the poorest guy to the richest guy, this is an extremely wealthy society, which is why they invest in plumbing, which no other Bronze Age civilization insists on.
Yeah, not
They're
only
very
it is wealthy, it's
serious.
significantly wealthier is the more important point.
It is so. Now here is the great paradox. It is the lack of these massive monumental buildings like ziggurats and pyramids that show you that Harappa was in fact richer, but also more equitable.
Yeah, income inequality भी कम थी.
Much less. Which is why you are able to achieve a standardization of weights. So imagine the kind of organization you need. I don't think, again, let me show you this. If
Search
you
कर
could
मैं
start
ऊपर ले
sharing the
आऊंगा.
map.
Yeah, I'll put it up.
If you, okay, so let me clear this. Okay, bring this up.
Yeah, it is up.
Okay, so if you're looking at Egypt, can you see my mouse moving?
Yeah, I can see your mouse moving.
Okay, so Egypt is something like this. Okay, it's literally that green patch that you see. There is virtually nothing you see outside that green patch. That is Egypt. You go to Mesopotamia. It is again the Tigris and the Euphrates. But in India, what you're seeing is a huge goddamn area. It's not even that. Can you see how the valley itself is going? Look at the width of the green here.
Yeah, the
Look at the width of the green here.
Yeah,
so I'm going to.
So spread of the IBC has to be all the way from Pakistan right down, all the way down to Gujarat and all those areas.
Right. So you're looking at something huge out here like this. And just look at the green area here. Compared to, you can hardly see the green area in Iraq. And here it's just like a thin nothingness almost. Right. So again, economics. You remember we did the same exercise with horses in the horse fields of Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and then the eastern steppes in Mongolia and things like that. I want you to see, even agriculturally, the production of this area was significantly greater. Plus, it's near complete monopoly over resources, crucial resources, tin, etc., etc. Now, something very curious happens. Around 1177, you have the Bronze Age collapse. Okay. The only person to recover truly from the Bronze Age collapse is Mesopotamia. Everybody else takes a very, very long time to recover. But even before that, 1177 is the Bronze Age collapse. But when does the Harappa civilization collapse? Any ideas?
Late Harappan, right? You're talking about late Harappan is, I think...
Late Harappan, total Harappan.
Yeah, late Harappan was around 2000 BCE or 1500 BCE. वहाँ से collapse शुरू हो जाता है.
It starts at about 1900. By 1800,
oh, you're talking about the collapse date. I was talking about the late Harappan period.
No. The collapse. The collapse happens
around 1000.
1900, not 1000.
1900 नहीं. मेरे हिसाब से 1500, 1400 तक actually वो
No. Indus Valley civilization is let's go by leftist Indus Valley.
नहीं, because तू महाभारत की डेट को वो लोग 900 बोलते
हैं. नहीं. Don't listen. We're talking serious history. Please, let's not go to Mahabharat here. Dates, it says 1300 BC. Most of it had been abandoned. This is even the late period. Okay, so the collapse, late Harappan
continuity. 1400 ही बोल रहा था और क्या बोल रहा था?
It's the gradual decline starts. Now, what is the 1900 BC gradual decline? See, 1700 BC, most of the cities had been abandoned, Kushal.
तो मैं तेरे
That
को
is collapse.
1400
Continuity. No,
तो मैं तेरे को
1400 is too late. 1700, they have been abandoned. 1700 is finished. You're done. There is cultural continuity, and that's about it.
एग्जैक्टली वही तो मैं तुझे बोल रहा था जब तूने 1000 बोला इसीलिए तो
So
मैं तुझे बोल रहा था
now, so it's not 1000. It's 1700. The collapse is complete.
या
It is de-urbanized at this point. By 1700, full de-urbanization. It starts 1900. Now, guess what happens in 1900? Abhi chup hai. What happens in 1900? Any ideas, anyone? Comments. Let's open up comments.
नहीं comments are there open ही है
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to give you 1 minute, audience, to guess what happens in 1900. Whoever guesses what momentous event happened in 1900, a full 800 years before the Bronze Age collapse in 1177 because of climatic conditions. That is a totally different thing. What happens in 1900, audience? You have 1 minute. The first correct answer, Kushalmehra will buy you a BMW 3 Series.
why
If he does not, you can sue him and take him to jail. It's now a fiduciary contract with the audience.
why
Just for fun. Shh. I'm reading the Battle of the Ten Kings. No.
No, Battle of the Ten Kings
Aryan.
is in the way early in the Rig Veda. What are they talking about?
Abbe, no talking about Veda Sheda now. Quiet.
Yeah.
We're only talking archaeology.
अरे
Arjuna
मगर Battle
killed
of the
Karna.
Ten
हाँ,
Kings is a Vedic
यार
thing.
कुलदीप जंगीद, what are you? Arjuna killed Karna. This hala. Sindhu flood. No. Not flood. Climate change. No. No. There is the drying up. No. No. It's Islamic invasion. Yeah, in 1900 BC, Islamic invasion. People shifted. No.
Islamic
Alien invasion. Okay, this guy should get an award just for Pikachu Man says constipation. Wrath of the Gods. Okay, people shifted. No. Indra attacked. No. Golden Hordes. No. Meteor. No. Saraswati partially, but that wasn't the main reason. The decline actually predates the beginnings of the decline, and this is a very curious thing. The beginnings of the decline predate the drying up of the rivers. Iyengar aa gaye. Correct. Yes, the Iyengars came. It was full Iyengar conspiracy. Yes, very good. Alien abduction. Wonderful. Okay, time out.
Yeah, bol.
Okay. I'm going to go to the map.
Yeah.
And see this island here, Cyprus?
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Yes. Tin is discovered here. Huge quantities of tin. Huge quantities of tin. And what that means is, now you tell me, what is closer to Mesopotamia from here to here and to Egypt? Cyprus.
The trade routes
Right.
change, material changes, economy changes.
Exactly. So it's literally, your tin is no longer competitive anymore.
Cost
The
of
only thing
transportation.
you're trading now is lapis lazuli, and even carnelian. They start finding substitutes. So you have now gone from a multi-product economy to a single product economy. Can you imagine the economic devastation it caused in this region? The entire economy had been built on this multi-product economy, and overnight, two of your main products are knocked out of the mix. The only thing you have left now is lapis lazuli. Okay, it's catastrophic. I mean, it's economically catastrophic. We tend to think of things as, natural calamity. But this is one of the earliest examples, I believe, of a economic collapse. This would have been like the Great Depression times 500 for these people, because you required a lot of tin to transport. The lapis lazuli was much rarer. So before, where you were using 1,000 ships, today you could just use one ship. That's 999 ships and their crews put out of work. That is 999 families put out of, say, assume 20 people per ship. That's tens of thousands of people out of work. And this, on average, where a city is about 30 to about 70, 80,000 max. That kind of an economic collapse is obscene. And notice what happens. The economic balance shifts towards Cyprus. And you see the people who monopolize it, Knossos and the Minoans, they become very rich, and they come up with a society which is a lot like Harappa. It does not have walls surrounding it. It does not have fortifications. They love life. They don't depict war. They only depict people having a fun time, bull riding and this and that, playing, dancing, things like that. So from India being Dubai or Moscow or what have you, the people who own Cyprus at that time, the Cretans, become your Dubai. पैसा सब उधर जाता है. ठीक है? So it's really fascinating that you see how these two things are linked. The rise of Cyprus, well, technically let's call it Crete, because even though the deposits were in Cyprus, it was the Minoan Empire controlling it. Cyprus was called Alasia, apparently. Or was it Crete? But anyway, that region was called Alasia. But the decline in fortunes of one, the rise in fortunes of the other. Instant. Totally instant. India does not recover. We have no serious archaeological urban areas found or signs of urbanization found from 1700 BC till about 700 BC. For 1,000 years, you don't recover. That is how devastating the collapse is. And at this time, of course, there is also climate change that sets in around 1900 BC. So it was double whammy, triple whammy, and all that crap. Okay. So you had this thing where a culture's economic basis has been wiped out. Its its homeland has effectively been wiped out. And I guess this is where the story of Bhagirata comes in. Where Bhagirata, because of course it's given a different spin, that he prays to Shiva and he brings the Ganges down upon earth. And that's very clearly the story of some kind of migration happening from the Indus Valley sites to the Gangetic sites. Right. So this is the belief. Again, a lot of this is hypothesis. I'm just, where it's fact, I'm telling you what is fact. There's remarkable coincidence. For example, the rise of Crete and things like that. But this is kind of what happens. Now, when I noticed there's a lot of people talking about Aryan invasion. I want to ask the audience, why do you feel that, this Aryan invasion is a complete myth and it did not happen, etc., etc., etc.? Because let me give you what is happening throughout this period at this time. Let's go back to maps again. And
ऑडियंस से ज्यादा इसमें मैं तुझे आंसर कर सकता हूँ, मगर मैं नहीं बोलूंगा बिकॉज तू बोल रहा है.
But you push back after I've given you the thing.
Yeah.
From here, you're looking at hordes come in. There is a period here where the Gutti and the Lulubi, which are Iranian tribes. So these are the Zagros mountains. And there are two tribes called the Gutti and not Kutti. Gutti with a G, and Lulubi that capture Iraq. They
Yeah.
come from the north and the east.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is around 1650 is when northern tribes come and occupy Egypt. That is the Hyksos invasion, and they occupy Egypt for about 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's clearly some kind of migration happening here, even though in 1650 there is no major earth-shattering climate event. But all three, 1650, same around the same period, and around the same period here. This is supposedly when the so-called Aryan invasion happens. But you know what is very curious about all of these? This is also when Razib, our friend Razib, insists that there is a major gene replacement event in northern India. There is a 15% gene replacement event. But guess what? All these tribes, now here we can't say for sure because there's too much opposition to Aryan invasion. So I'm going to leave that because that's controversial. The Gutti and the Lulubi, who are ethnically distinct tribes, they become Mesopotamian. They adopt everything about Mesopotamia. The Hyksos who come and occupy Egypt, the Egyptians don't accept them as their own, but they accept all the trappings of Egypt. So these are like Mongols. They're extremely loose cultured people who are coming and completely getting absorbed into the local population. Right? Now you push back.
Okay, here's the thing. My take will be very different because I'm not someone who believes India is the homeland. So this is going to be doubly irritating for people because I don't believe the Indian homeland. I don't believe the South Russian homeland. There's a difference in my belief and what the standard Indian pushback is. My pushback is the Anatolian or the Iranian homeland. See, most people have misunderstood what the Aryan invasion theory is. Most people think it is about the steppe people coming in. See, it has been even now in it is all about the proto-indo-european homeland. What is the birthplace of the proto-indo-european? Everything else is all nura kushti beyond that. And now with the Reich lab and what वो क्या है इजलीस जो भी है उसका जो पेपर आया है अभी सदनाक के जो पेपर्स आए हैं I just finished reading the paper. Bhai, even the Southern Arc paper now has pushed the Proto-Indo-European homeland out of South Russia way into Armenia and Anatolia. So where is the South Russian homeland? Now what they're doing, so just try and understand, Abhijit. They are saying that from Anatolia, there is a branch that broke and the Anatolians did not change. It went all the way to South Russia in the Yamna culture. So Yamna is clearly not the Proto-Indo-European homeland. The Yamna, wo jo Kurgan culture is not the Proto-Indo-European. Then it comes all the way back, goes into
Okay, I
Iran,
understood
and
what
from
you're
Iran
saying.
in India. It doesn't make
Now,
sense. So my hypothesis is different. Hear me. My hypothesis is yes, they did go to the steppes. Yes. And people did come from the steppes. But to say that they could not have gone from the Anatolian area into India and Iran separately is just bollocks. It makes no sense. And their modeling of the genetic
here's the
model
issue.
is selective.
The issue is whatever it was only 15% replacement, which means the remaining 85 remained local stock. You read the Vedas or anything, is there any memory of a homeland outside of India?
नहीं ना वही तो मैं कह रहा हूँ मैं तो खुद बोल रहा हूँ
So here's the thing, whatever, and these were nomads. For all you know, they could have even come from Moscow. So if the search for a original homeland of whoever these people are is irrelevant. Do you understand? The Aryan invasion is irrelevant to your history.
It is. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's exactly has been my point from day one.
And here's the thing. They say that they bring two things, iron and horses. At this time, like go back to the horse podcast, there was no such thing as a true horse. So when jackasses like Asko Parpola and people like that tell you that this wasn't a true horse, Sinoli is not a true horse. It might have been a donkey. Benchod, all the horses were donkeys at this time.
Yeah, that's true. And that's
okay. There was no if you saw a horse at this time, you would have great difficulty distinguishing it from a donkey.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Okay. It would have been virtually impossible. Again, go back and see the horse podcast about it. This happened solidly in the Bronze Age. So they did not bring iron. So the two main things of your invasion theory are complete bullshit. They did not bring their religion. They absorbed the local religion because the local religion knows nothing outside.
The Rig Veda is
They
an
did not bring
IVC
iron
religion.
because at this time, right? Basically, that's the conclusion we're reaching.
And
Okay,
can I give you one more point to back you up so that you nuance your point even better? A solid reading of the Rig Veda will realize ये लोग क्या कर रहे हैं मालूम है? See, it is very important for you to understand because तू pastoralism के लिए बात करता है हमेशा. Pastoralism and nomadic pastoralism में फर्क होना चाहिए.
Huge. There is a huge difference.
ऋग्वेदा का पैस्टोरलिज्म नोमैडिक नहीं है. जब ऋग्वेदा को, मेरे जैसा आदमी जिसने हम्बली एडमिट करता हूं, मैंने ऋग्वेदा शायद लोगों से ज्यादा पढ़ा है. ऋग्वेदा एक बहुत सेडेंटरी पैस्टोरलिज्म की बात करता है. वो दूसरों की बात करता है. वो बोलता है हम यहाँ पे बैठे हैं और वो हम देख रहे हैं उनको. और दूसरा, मैंने कितनी बार लोगों को बोला है, ऋग्वेदा में यस वो बोलते हैं कि स्माइट द दस्यु, smite the dasa, but why don't they talk about the verses where it also says smite the arya and the dasa? It says smite the arya also.
And see, at this point there is also a tribe which is called the Dahai, which is somewhere north of Mashhad. It's south from Turkmenistan to Mashhad. If you plot it, generally we can place it from other sources at this point of time. It's somewhere here. They're called the Dahai. Now, again, working with etymology is always a bit, it's fraught. Let's put it this way. It's fraught. So, are you sharing this?
Yeah, I have.
This is the rough area where these so-called Dahai lived. Now, then why is the Rig Veda telling you to smite them? I could understand if it's telling you to smite the Dravidians, so-called Dravidians down here. But why is it telling you to kill their own brothers and sisters, alleged brothers and sisters up here?
Yeah, because if anybody did an honest reading of the Rig Veda, which I have in my life, and purely because of my inspiration through Shrikant Talagiri blowing holes in my brain, and I was like, I need to prove this man wrong. And I started reading the Rig Veda to prove him wrong. And then I was like, damn, actually a lot of things he says makes a point. It is just the Rig Veda, again, this will annoy the Hindus here, but Rig Veda is a book of one tribe. It is just one tribe talking about his worldview.
Correct.
That's all. It is not a pan-India book when it was written. It became a pan-India book.
It is the book of the Bharata clan. Bas.
Yeah, Bharata Purus.
Which was one of many competing clans, just like the Bible.
Yes.
Is a book of Hezekiah, because there were several competing Jewish kingdoms at this point of time. And he imposed his own view through literature and this and that on other Jews. Remember, Jehovah first had a wife who was also worshipped along with him, which nobody wants to talk about anymore. So all these books, so for example, the Bible as we know it, there were 19 different versions of the Bible. Ultimately, they had to gather at the Council of Nicaea and the Council of Chalcedony, and they decided on the final version of the Bible, which is what we know as the Bible today. It is the same as the Quran. There were several versions of it till it was codified in the Abbasid Revolution. Okay, so this is the problem that we're looking at. It is just one tribe. But let's get back to the Bronze Age. This was kind of a very nice detour, which I did want to talk about. But I just wanted to point out to you that horses at this time were not horses. The invasion happens in the Bronze Age, not in the Iron Age, etc., etc., etc.
No, but the horses point is very important, Abhijit. So everybody listening to this, keep this in your mind, because how much of a role the horse plays in a lot of spinning done by many people.
We'll keep saying it's not true horse. It was an ox cart. This is a donkey. This is not really, or this is an onager. This is not really a horse. You know, I want you to find me a true horse at that point anywhere in the world. बहन के लोड़े साले. Okay, next. Now, what happens here is, unfortunately, in India, like I said, that recovery takes 1,000 years. The archaeological record between 1700 to 700 BC is we know nothing. There's nothing that I've read about. There's nothing I've seen. Even Sinauli is very close to the end of, by 1700, all the cities were abandoned. Sinauli is when 1800 or 1650
Sinoli
BC, sometime.
some artifacts are even 1900. Some सिनौली में some are there. 1900 तक जा रहा है वो तो. बट सिनौली तो गैंजेटिक प्लेन के उधर आ गया ना सब, और थोड़ा बहुत राखी गढ़ी के उधर आ गया, ये उत्तर प्रदेश और ये सब में आ गया ना. मगर सिनौली में जो मिला है तुझे, और सिनौली उत्तर प्रदेश में है. सिनौली का राखी गढ़ी से क्या कनेक्शन है? तू कंफ्यूज कर रहा है मेरे को.
नहीं. No. What I'm saying is Sinoli is a post-Harappan find.
Yeah, but see, on that, Abhijit, we have to be very careful, because now...
Exactly, we have to be very careful, because it's very... the dating, there's like 100, 200 year this thing about it.
It is always plus minus 400. Whenever they keep these dates, they always give a caveat of plus minus 400. But the point is that now the serious archaeological excavations in the Gangetic plains have just started now in India, with the advent of increasing funding and etc. Don't be surprised if the Gangetic plain also goes further back. Don't be surprised with that at all.
But as of now, I would expect something, and I'll tell you why it is going to be difficult to find them. I will deal with this in the third part. I'm going to move on to the second part first. You remember I told you to focus on what was close to Memphis, Cairo? That will be the third part, and I'll tell you why that's important, why we may not find much.
Okay.
Right. Now let's go back to the map. Do you want to project the map?
Done.
Okay. 1177 is the full-blown Bronze Age collapse. There are sea people, and this is very important. Why is the sea people? You all hear about the sea people. They destroy the Hittite Empire here, which is a late Bronze Age empire. They destroy the Mycenaean civilization, which by this time had captured Crete, which owned Cyprus. There is a lot of invasion and destruction happening in Iraq at this point of time. We don't know who. The entire Levant is wiped out at this point. Egypt is the only one that kind of partially manages to survive, because Ramesses IV defeats the sea people. But Egypt never recovers economically after this. Egypt is a Bronze Age phenomenon. You will not find one great monument or one great empire coming out of Egypt after 1177. The Bronze Age collapse is the end of Egyptian greatness. There's one pharaoh in about 700 BC, Nesho, who comes and kind of fights here, but mostly kuch nahi ho raha hai. Okay? Nothing happening here. Iraq recovers quite quickly, surprisingly. India at this phase, as far as we are concerned, is in the dark ages. We don't know any of what is going. We suspect that because this part has become desertified, the Indus Valley has become desertified, that is what the Bhagirata story is about, and there is a full movement to the Ganges instead. So it becomes a Gangetic-centered civilization as opposed to a Saraswati Indus-centered civilization.
It could also be the western parts were going to southern India also, no? The western parts, like the Gujarat.
Okay, let me finish talking. Wait, let me finish talking first. Okay. Now, I wanted to show you guys. Do you remember I told you Memphis is somewhere here, very close to Cairo? And if you know, the pyramids are almost a suburb of Cairo now. Okay. Now, I want you to come to Iraq. And this is why it is probably going to be impossible to find certain things. Here is Baghdad. You see Baghdad here? Baghdad, can you see?
Yeah, everybody can see. It's visible.
Okay, so say yes. Now I'm going to show you Ur. Ur is a suburb of Baghdad. The second or third biggest city was a suburb of is now a suburb of Baghdad. You've all heard of Ur. This is where all this lapis lazuli and shit I showed you was. So notice the continuity here. It then becomes something called Seleucia, and then it becomes Tisfun. Tisfun is the Takal Kasra. Tak Kasra is this famous Sasanian arch, because this was Tisfun. It was the Sassanid capital, etc., etc., etc. There is almost near continuity in some suburb of Baghdad being the most important part. Baghdad or its extended neighborhood being the most important part of this region. You understand? Ur, which is the old Sumerian mother city, well, it was technically Uruk, which was down there, but Ur was always an extremely important city. It did become the center of an empire later on. Tisfun, which is the Sassanids, an Achaemenid war capital, and now Baghdad, they are all the same city, effectively, more or less. Now let me put Babylon here, because Babylon of Nabuchodonosor, Babylon archaeological hills, are not that far from, they're about 80 kilometers or so direct as the crow flies from Baghdad. So the red dot is this thing. Baghdad kahan hai bhai? Baghdad kahan hai?
Saddam kha gaya.
Let Baghdad go. Saddam kha gaya. Chup. Anyway, it's about 80 kilometers from here. Just to give you context, Babylon is closer to Baghdad than the outer edge of Gurgaon is from the outer edge of Ghaziabad. Do you know the Delhi metropolitan area, technically, if you drive from the absolute end, the fag end of Gurgaon to the fag end of Ghaziabad is about 170 kilometers. Today, it is part of one city. So we're not talking about major distances. Now, herein lies the problem. I'm showing you the layers just of Baghdad, how it is in different names been the capital of this Mesopotamian region, also of the Persian Empire. You are going to have the exact same problem here. आज जो पटना है, जो पाटलिपुत्रा था, best of luck trying to get archaeological permission to dig in Patna Central. You're not going to be able to do it. You're simply not going to be able to do it. Because today, the way the city has grown, any city has grown, like I showed you, these were different cities. Tisfun and Ur were different cities. Today, they're part of the same city, Baghdad. Here, Patna has grown so much. If there was an ancient Patliputra, it is somewhere, it is some mohalla of Patna, and Patna is now too big. You will never get the permissions to dig. And God knows what has been destroyed in excavations just to build, of Juggi Jhopris or big government buildings in Patna.
And not only that, so in the subsequent invasions also, how much is destroyed, we don't know.
Look, this invasion thing, I'm not buying. Because the remnants of invasion are always, there is too much archaeology which will always show you the remnants of an invasion. Okay, so this invasion, this thing is complete crock. I will never believe this invasion thing, because no invasion has been ever. You know, when the Romans destroyed Carthage, they literally took every stone and threw it away and they plowed the fields with salt. And yet, within 100 years, Carthage had become another important part of the Roman Empire within 100 years. And you can still find archaeological evidence of the most important military fortification of Carthage, which was its its circular military base. Remove the screen sharing, Kushal. So this is going to be very, very problematic discovering that dark age. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Something that we need to worry about, which is very common, is that there is no mention of civic amenities anymore in India. Drainage becomes non-existent. It becomes like the rest of the world. Toilets, none to mention. It becomes conservatory lanes, or you're going out to shit or whatever. All the great achievements of the wealth and the equity that you had in Harappa, India stops becoming an equitable society. India stops being a health conscious society, or at least a bath conscious society at this point. There is still ritual bathing, and remember, all pagan cultures have a ritual bathing element to them. So this becomes very problematic, that you don't lose your culture, but you lose your civic sense. There is no more standardization anymore. Remember, Harappa, the Indus Valley civilization was, if it was an empire, again, we don't know what it was. It had more intra-empire coordination than even the Mughal or the Mauryan or the Gupta empires did. And incidentally, it was the biggest empire. It was probably bigger than the Gupta empire, possibly, at least parts of direct control. And I would dare say that the direct control, the Mughal and the Maurya empire never displayed the kind of uniformity and control over an area that Harappa has.
Yeah,
never.
True.
Okay.
Yeah, because the weights were standardized, the bricks were standardized, the designs were standardized, everything was standardized.
The roads, the road width was standardized.
Yep.
So that requires the level of social control that requires it. It is huge.
Yeah.
So, and this is natural. This is natural for a people who have retained their culture and their memory of bathing somehow, but not standardized weights and measures and things like that. Now, why does the Iron Age set in? Again, let's go back to the map. If you start projecting, now you remember I told you the sea people cut off Cyprus. So your tin was now cut off from you. Without tin, what happens? So climate change was just one element of it. Climate change led to a mass migration of people because of starvation, which is the sea peoples, and increased nomadic activity from the steppes and things like that. But your tin sources have been cut off here. So your society starts collapsing, because bronze is the basis of your society. Like we discussed right at the beginning, bronze created the ancient world. The ancient world did not create bronze. Okay. Now, I want you to see this dagger. It is Tutankhamun's iron dagger. Iron dagger. Okay. Now, this is a very, very important thing. Now, when you think, we say Iron Age, you think that people did not know how to work iron before this. They did. This is the clearest example, because Tutankhamun is decisively in the Bronze Age. And this is meteoritic iron. It is, we know this came from a meteorite. Okay. But you know what is particularly important out here? In Tutankhamun's time, this blade was more expensive than the gold, the crystal, and this entire gold sheath. This part was the most expensive part of the dagger. Apparently, this was 3 times more expensive than the gold used in the dagger. That's one estimate I've read. Imagine iron being more expensive than gold. But now imagine what has happened. Your tin sources have dried up. Even your local tin source has dried up. So what happens now is global tin supply disruption. This is like a global petrol disruption, which will immediately move you towards solar and green. Where, if oil finishes tomorrow, it doesn't matter how many petrol cars you have, they're all completely useless overnight. And so green energy becomes cheap energy, it becomes necessary energy. Iron requires nothing to process. Processed iron is as strong as unprocessed iron. There are, of course, methods like adding carbon to it, but carbon is available locally. So again, this is an economic history. The economics change where now iron is cheaper to produce. Because tin has become too expensive. So what has suddenly happened here is this went from being super expensive to, out of sheer necessity, the scale of iron working went up. In order to maintain your current lifestyle, you needed a hard metal. And maybe iron was very expensive then, now it's much cheaper. And this in many ways explains why Egypt never becomes an Iron Age power. It is always a Bronze Age power and never an Iron Age power. Because guess what? If you are in Egypt from here to here, you will rarely find trees that you can use to make coal. The destructive distillation of wood produces charcoal. If you don't have sources of coal to dig up. It is an extremely fuel-intensive process to get those kind of high heats in a furnace to smelt iron. And they just can't get enough iron. The iron production, whereas here, there's a lot of evidence of coal mines and things like that, and Turkey used to be extremely rich in coal mine. So the locus shifts. Egypt is no longer what it was anymore. Because even though iron has now become cheaper, Egypt is still foreign trade reliant, where it has to rely on timber from the Levant coming in. That is to say, from Lebanon to Israel, coming in order to fuel its iron making. Again, economics. Right? And now you understand why does the first part of our civilization arise? Not in UP or here, where it should have rejuvenated the old Harappan Indus Valley civilization areas, the difference of economics and iron. Instead, it happens closest to your iron mining areas, Patna. Isn't it surprising that is closest to where your iron mining is?
Jharkhand or so.
Yeah. So the rise of Magadha has everything to do with the control of iron.
It's basically resource related. Technology changes.
It's resource related. Yeah. Exactly. It's resource related. Okay. So this is why the center shifts from tin dependent here to iron monopolizing here. From the tin dependent area here, notice here to the Afghan mining areas is kind of, slightly shorter. But Patna to this thing is the same. Patna to Jharkhand is kind of the same. Bihar itself has iron mines. I mean, it's not all in Jharkhand. But that's where it is. This is pure resource monopolization. So understand, resources play a much larger role than any bloody so-called Aryan invasion, than horses, than any of that shit.
Hey, you gotta convince the step hypothesis guys here, not us.
I have to convince who?
You have to convince David Anthony, nobody else. He put all his eggs in the horse basket.
Oh, good. I mean, I mean, I can't take it upon myself to convince Shrutyas, but good for him. So remember, this is what happens in the Iron Age. The rise of iron is a pure economic phenomenon caused by the cutting off of tin supplies, which happened because of population migration, because of climate change
Mm-hmm.
in 1177, which is the Great Bronze Age collapse. Now, India never suffered the Bronze Age collapse per se, because we suffered climate change plus trade loss collapse much earlier,
Mm.
right? So it actually takes a while longer for us. So we only start in about 700 getting the Mahajanapadas and things start getting their game together. And again, now that iron has become industrial, we are able to fuel. Now, why do several empires come up here? Because they are able to use the trees to fuel iron production here. They are able to use coal mines. Remember the other great thing, they don't even have to chop down trees. This is the other
Yeah.
amazing thing, because Jharkhand has massive coal mines.
Yeah.
So you can use trees for other things. So once again, India then becomes a self-dependent economy. So imagine here, your Indus Valley civilization, self-contained. You're getting your tin, which is your main metal car thing, from here. You are getting your lapis lazuli from here. You are getting your carnelian from here. And suddenly the same ecosystem gets created out here, where you are getting your coal from here, you are getting your iron from here, you are getting everything, you are getting your water from here, you are getting your agriculture from here. Everything is now here.
Mm.
Your diamonds come from here. You still don't know diamonds. I mean, there's no evidence this early of diamonds, but basically, this is where everything is coming from. Even your gold, a lot of your gold from this period comes from here.
Mm-hmm.
So it is pure resource, resource, resource. Okay? This is the big change that happens in the Iron Age. Cultural continuity, but loss of civic sense, a
Mm-hmm.
new resource duplication, which leads. Why is Magadha the center of your civilization for 2000 years continuously?
Mm.
This is why.
Yeah, basically
Okay,
economics drives human beings, and human beings then, when they gather in one area, culture is a direct outcome of that.
correct. So I will finish here.
Okay, cool. Now I'll ask you questions because there are many already. So I'll start with the other ones.
Okay, I'll tell
So
you what. Let's do a session. I have to go. I'm on times now. Next at 9:30, I have to go. So let's do a
so
separate Q&A session, because we've already taken an hour and a half.
ठीक है, तो ऐसा करते हैं. I already have all your super chats, humans. What we'll do is next time I'll call Abhijit next month and we'll only do questions then. ठीक है Abhijit, ऐसे करते हैं. We can do that.
Huh?
Don't worry about it, guys. I'll keep all your questions with me, and in the next session next month, which is September. I mean, literally, it is just
No,
a
no.
few.
Let's do it next week. Let's do the Q&A next week,
ठीक है, next
because
week
then
we'll do
everything
a
will be
Q&A.
fresh.
Then yeah, we'll do a Q&A in the next week. September में ही कर लेंगे. And I'll bring Abhijit back again, and I'll take all the questions and I'll answer them. So we'll end today's discussion, as Abhijit has to go to Times Now and yell at other people, and other people yell back at him, which is nothing else happens out there. So chal Abhijit, thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon, buddy.
ठीक है, टाटा बाय.
All right, guys, you know the drill. Subscribe to the channel, like the video. Don't worry about your questions, they'll all be taken. And I'll see you guys next week. Until then, bye.